Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. A lot of discussion from the national media regarding Dabo Swinney, this Clemson program, and really where this program is going in this, what you might say, modern era of college football. And look, the Clemson fans who've been rocking with the fellas the last couple of years and months, y'all know I've been critical at times of Dabo Swinney as well. Want to take a deeper dive into the state of Clemson, where they're going the next 5 to 10 years. And look, it starts with the wins and losses. That's how you're going to get evaluated as a program, as a head coach. Are you getting it done on Saturdays in the fall? But I think a lot of college football fans who follow this sport pretty closely know that's probably not the only way you want to evaluate how a program is operating and where a program is going. We got to talk about the coaching staff. We got to talk about talent acquisition, talk about player development. Want to get into some of those categories as well. Really dive into what is the state of this Clemson program heading into the next couple of years. Before we get into it, as always, to the Clemson fans, it's been really fun talking this team. A lot of highs and lows over the last couple of years, and the amount of support the Clemson fans continue to show to the boys. It means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, look, I can get up here, give my takes around this Clemson program. I think where it truly matters is how the Clemson fans are feeling about where this program is. Would love to hear how the Clemson fans are feeling in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with, on-field play. 10-3, or excuse me, 11-3 in 2022, ACC champs. 9-4, didn't make it to the ACC championship game. 2024, 10-4, ACC champs, college football playoff appearance. Is this the standard that Clemson has built up over the last couple of years? No, probably not. There are a lot of football programs across the country that would take the last 3 years that Clemson has had. And I think that kind of, if you are a Dabo defender, that kind of speaks to what Dabo's done at Clemson. Like the last 3 years, successful for a lot of other programs, probably not the standard. And I think a lot of Clemson fans feel rather disappointed in terms of what the last couple of years has looked like. Now in 2025, the Clemson fans who've been rocking with the fellas, y'all know I think this can be a special year. They got a ton of guys returning. They got a ton of young players coming up through the pipeline. You add Tom Allen on the defensive side of the football. This 2025 year feels really important in terms of where this Clemson program is going. Because I think that team in 2025, this is a Clemson team that can win a national championship. I think they have the personnel and the coaching staff to do so, along with the quarterback. We'll see how that plays out. On-field play, maybe a slight dip. A lot of teams are taking what you've seen from Clemson the last couple of years. Now, this is probably the most important conversation to talk about. Over the last couple of years, we have seen a dip of what Clemson is used to doing on the recruiting trail, right? When Clemson was the perennial team in college football, quite frankly, winning national championships, that recruiting rank was pretty damn consistently top 8, top 5, at times top 3. The last couple of years, kind of sitting around 15th in the country with a really big dip in 2025. Now, my overall takeaways: one, it's nice to see Clemson supplementing at least a little bit in the transfer portal. Many of y'all know my takes. I know Dabo Swinney's not going to be a guy that wants to overturn his roster. Development, culture, that's really important in terms of Dabo Swinney and what he wants to do. And I'm not necessarily going to argue with that. My only take on the transfer portal is, hey, if you get the opportunity to maybe fill in some gaps of your roster immediately in one offseason, if every other team's going to be doing it that you're going to be competing against, I think Dabo Swinney has to start as well. And you saw him do that a little bit in 2025, and I'm kind of interested to see what that looks like over the next couple of years. Now, although according to the recruiting services, Clemson a little bit lower than what we're used to seeing, I'll say this: their high school hit rate, it's got to be as good, if not the best in the country. Now, you look at the names that Clemson has, and it's not only the headliners, the 5 and 4 stars, it's some of the 3 stars that don't get as much national media attention that continue to seem to emerge as really good football players for Clemson. There's a lot of other programs that just take a lot of players and they'll have a really high recruiting ranking, but not necessarily have the hit rate. Clemson, although a little bit lower from the recruiting services, they you go up and down their recruiting classes the last couple of years. They hit on their guys coming out of high school on a very consistent basis. That's kind of my take. And the overall argument for talent acquisition is, hey, are you putting enough talent on your football team that you can go out and win ACC championships and national championships? And I would say the answer for Clemson heading into 2025 is yes. I think they have the talent in place to compete at the highest level of the sport. And so although the recruiting ranking looks a little bit lower, I still like what Clemson's doing from a talent acquisition standpoint, especially with kind of dipping their toes into the transfer portal. This is kind of what separates Clemson from a lot of other programs in the country, and that's player development. You look at the draft picks. In 2024, obviously a lot of draft picks. You look at 2025, that number is going to be lower. Now, it's lower for the biggest reason it's going to be lower is there's a lot of guys that could have gone to the NFL and been NFL draft picks. Think Cade Klubnik, Antonio Williams, couple guys on the offensive line that are deciding to come back to the program. So although the NFL draft representation for Clemson in 2025 is going to be a little bit lower than what we're used to seeing, I don't think that's a accurate depiction of what the player development looks like for Clemson. Because you look at this is another reason why I'm so excited about Clemson in 2025. The bulk of this Clemson football team going into 2025, who are the best players? Some of the young cats, right? TJ Parker, Peter Woods, Sammy Brown, Antonio Williams, Brian Wesco, TJ Moore. A lot of guys that, outside of Antonio Williams, could have gone to the NFL draft, but the rest of them, they just weren't allowed to go yet. NFL talent. And there's a lot of player development that's taken place on this Clemson football team. That's maybe not the best way to measure player development, but we kind of say it all the time. There's not many programs that develop talent better than what Clemson does. This is, I think, one of the bigger storylines and talking points in terms of evaluating what Clemson is doing. This coaching staff, a little bit revamped over the last couple of years. And, Dabo Swinney historically being hey, we're going to promote, hire from within, kind of did not work a couple of years back. And you've seen a little bit of a pivot. You go out and get Garrett Riley, and it was some growing pains in 2023. Fast forward to 2024 and what this offense looks like it can be in 2025, that seems like a home run hire. Matt Luke joining the staff to coach the offensive line, that was a unit that got much better going into 2024, and I think they can take a step going into 2025. Matt Luke, he's one of the best offensive line coaches in the game. I think CJ Spiller, really, really bright spot at the running back coach spot, and then you bring in Tom Allen, which I think arguably one of the most impactful offseason hires that we saw in the sport. You look at Clemson going into 2025 and say, the offense, this national championship caliber. If you get Cade Klubnik in the version we saw in 2024, if not a little bit better with development in 2025, with the wide receivers he has, with the veteran offensive line, I look at that offense as that's an offense that can win a national championship. Then you look at the defensive side of the football and say, look, the talent level's there. We've been saying that all year. That unit as a whole in 2024 was not. Can Tom Allen be the guy to come in and turn that unit around? And not necessarily turn it around because it was horrible in 2024, but get the best out of it. Yeah, I know you look at that Clemson defense saying ranked around 40th in the country points per game allowed. That's a defense that prior to the season starting, I thought could be a top 10 defense in the country. Can you get that defense back there? Tom Allen's about as good of a hire as you could have made to get it back there. I look at Clemson as a whole and say, yeah, there's been a lot, and I've been part of it at times, right? I have criticized Dabo Swinney and at least at points the failure to adapt to the modern era of college football. When you start looking at the most important metrics to evaluate a program, on-field play, although it's not been what we're used to seeing from Clemson, still pretty damn good. Talent acquisition, player development, coaching staff, a coaching staff that might be one of the better coaching staffs that we see in the country going into 2025. There's a lot that is still going in the right direction for Clemson. I'll say this 2025 season to me feels like an opportunity for Dabo Swinney to remind the college football landscape what this program is under him. Because I look at this is as confident as I have felt around a Clemson football team for at least 3 to 4 years? And can Dabo Swinney maximize it and put it all together in 2025? That's the question. Lot of differing opinions, I would guess, from the Clemson fans. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.